Greetings and salutations. We are back with another episode of a series that I am calling Understanding Relationships. And in these videos, I am just giving my take, my perspective, my insight, some of my newfound understanding of what I have now learned in my walk when it comes to relationships and the things that I am now understanding. If you have not already, go back and watch the previous videos to catch yourself up. But today is part 4. Today I want to talk about one of the things that I believe is another one of the most important aspects of communication. People say it all the time, and it was perceived to be the most important aspect of relationships at one point, and I don't know if people still feel that way. But that is communication. Um, Communication is absolutely a very important aspect of relationships. It is very, very important. You cannot have a successful relationship without communication, and not just communication, but effective communication. And with effective communication, there must be a caveat to your communication, and that is understanding. You cannot have communication, effective communication, without understanding. And so, as always, I want to give my take on why effective communication and understanding is so important when it comes to relationships. Now, before we go into that, I want to do what I normally do. I want to define what communication is as a baseline reference for this information. And what communication is, it is the imparting or interchange of thoughts, opinions, or information by speech, writing, or signs. So, basically, what that is saying is, so when you want to convey something to a person, whether it is your opinion, whether it's a thought, or whether it is just regular information, the ways in which you do it through your speech, by talking, through writing, whether it's text message or handwritten letter. I don't know if people still do that, or signs like the example that I used in the last video of the work zone, like an actual sign. So communication. Why is communication so important? Because without it, the relationship is generally it's just not possible to have a relationship without communication. Let's just be honest. You cannot, right? And with that, because the when you are in a relationship, your need to and your ability to communicate effectively and make sure that what you communicate is understood sometimes can be the make or break ultimately of the relationship. Usually it kind of creates the breakdown of the relationship or the buildup of the relationship. So when there are things that you want to move forward in as a relationship, you have to be able to sit down and communicate those things. And when you communicate those things by your thoughts or your opinions, you have to, especially if you're doing them by speech, you have to make sure that your word choices, even your tone and pitch, it has come to my understanding that tone and pitch is a very big deal in the communication world, especially when it comes to women receiving information from men. I hear this all the time, like it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And sometimes the information gets lost in transition because of the tone in which it was conveyed. And this is where understanding gets lost, because now she never heard what you said, she heard how you sound, right? And as men, one of the biggest things we do is we try to defend what we said, not understanding that she is defending how you said it. Here we have a clear already case of miscommunication, the breakdown of the communication. And this type of situation, as quickly as that derailed, this is where it continues to go in the wrong direction. Because now you have two people, now they are constantly communicating to each other, not understanding that they are not talking about the same thing now at this point, because men are logical. He's staying on topic. He's talking about the information that he tried to convey. Women are emotional. She's on top of how he sounded when he said it. And they are not, they're arguing about two different things, not understanding where the breakdown in the communication was. And sometimes situations like this, they can spiral out of control, escalate to a point of no return. And it's little things like this that cause disruption and sometimes dysfunction in a relationship. So this is just one example of why communication is so important. It's so vital. It's a necessary thing to have, and the understanding of it. This is, I think that was a very good example of why it's so important to understand, also not just communicate, because one of the problems that I used to have in communication, and I'm transparent, I'm using myself as the example, is I'm a talker. So in my attempt to impart my thoughts and my opinions and this information, especially when it came to my children, I would sit them down and I would start talking. And of course, sometimes they would lose what I was trying to say to them, because sometimes I talked for too long, right? So I did not understand that my communication time frame, the window of opportunity for my communication, especially when dealing with children, there's a window of their attention span, right? So you have to be able to consolidate the information that you want to convey inside the window of a person's attention span, especially if you are dealing with children, right? And they used to, so it just got to the point where every time I got ready to talk, like I did it so frequently that every time I got ready to talk, it was they dreaded my conversation. Oh my God, daddy finna preach again. Right. And I didn't understand. All I was saying was, what? I'm just trying to I'm trying to share this with you. This is very important. You need to know this. Right. And not understanding what how my communication, um how I was communicating ineffectively, right? They didn't even understand how to communicate to me, why my communication was ineffective. They couldn't communicate to me that their attention span was not that long. They didn't know how to communicate to me that they didn't want to hear me trying to convey information to them so frequently, so often, right? So again, this is another reason why communication and understanding is so important in relationships. And again, this example here, this was a parent child relationship where the children, it was just as important for the children to know how to communicate as well as the parents. And sometimes it's just knowing when not to communicate. That's another factor in effectiveness of communication. Timing is everything. um know when, as someone used to always tell me, like, check the temperature of the room, right? Check the temperature of the room. See how people are feeling. See what people's mood are looking like. Observe the person that you are trying to communicate with before you just dive into communicating, to see if and how much they would be receptive to you trying to impart information to them at that time, or your thoughts at that time, or your opinion at that time. Even going into romantic relationships, right? Um, because this is kind of how relationships can get derailed. There could be a specific subject, topic, or issue or situation that one person wants to talk about. They want to communicate it. They want to bring it to the light because they want something done about it. And so now the question becomes, at in that moment that they um, generated that desire, and that wantingness to bring this topic up, was it the best time? Did y'all just get back from a wonderful evening? Did y'all just get in from a nice dinner? Did y'all just make it home from church? Did y'all just finish celebrating something? Is everyone tired? Is it the end of the night and everyone's exhausted and want to just go in the house, take a bath, and go to bed? Right? Is it the beginning of the morning? Soon as you wake up, you still got halitosis on your breath and haven't even had a chance to brush your teeth, but you were dreaming about this thing all night and you woke up and you wanted to address it first thing in the morning, right? Like, did you even have an opportunity to check the temperature? Is that person you want to communicate with even fully woke yet? Do you believe that they're in a position to really hear you and receive whatever it is you want to talk about? Is your timing, how are you gauging your timing? When, and then people would ask, well, when is the perfect time? There is no perfect time. You just have to determine when is the right time. I had to learn that. I'm still learning that. There is no perfect time. You have to determine the right time. And the right time, the only right time, says, if let me clarify, when is the right time? The right time is when the person that you want to communicate with is receptive to communicating, right? A lot of times we try to force what we want to talk about on a person, and we don't understand that they're not in the mood for a conversation. And sometimes we get frustrated because it's like, man, you may feel like they're avoiding it because they may know they're not a good communicator. You keep putting this off. I want to talk about this. You keep putting this off. I want to talk about this. And again, this is the part where you have to learn how to communicate with them the importance of this thing that you want to talk about, so you can maybe schedule an opportunity to talk about it at their convenience. And then on the flip side to that, to the person that's avoiding the conversation, to the person that is running from the conversation that you don't want to have, you don't want to talk about it. 9 times out of 10, you're probably avoiding it because you know it probably has something to do with you and maybe some sort of change or correction that is going to be requested of you. Don't run from this, because running from this is you saying, I don't want to change. I don't want to grow. Don't tell me what to do. Don't try to provoke me for any kind of change or growth. Leave me alone. And that is a recipe for destruction in your relationship. If you are trying to have a good, healthy, successful relationship, there comes a point where you have to allow yourself to go and have that conversation. Make time to have that conversation, especially if it is a topic or subject that is important to the person that wants to have it. And who knows how vital and important that subject is to the person that wants to have it, and how important it could be for the overall success of your relationship. Same thing if it's in a work environment, right? Calling meetings, right? Everyone dreads morning meetings at work. Everyone dreads any kind of meeting at work because what are they going to talk about? You're kind of worried. Are they going to talk about you and your performance? Are you worried? Are they going to be laying people off, and you are one of the chosen few that gets laid off? So you try to avoid those. You don't want to go to the morning meetings, or the days that you know that there is a morning meeting. You call in because you don't want to endure the process of you're afraid to hear the information, because that information, um, possibly in most cases, points towards your direction, but the purpose of that information is for some level of improvement or correction. Why are we such a people that hate to be corrected? We say we always working on our best self, and we say we always trying to grow, and we make all of these statements about the version of ourselves that we're trying to become on this greater level, higher level, improving. But why is it that we only feel like we're able to become that person by our own merit? what we decide for ourselves. We make the changes that we feel like we need to make. We make the improvements that only we feel like we need to make. We believe that we don't need to work on certain things because we are gauging ourselves um, based on what we believe about ourselves. And if that's the thermometer in which we gauge what we need to change and where we need to change, what areas we need to change, and to what degree we need to make those changes, let's be honest, a lot of people think that they're fine the way that they are, and those changes never get made, and we don't become a better version of ourselves. In most cases, um, usually it's an external source that can see things about us that we cannot see for ourselves. Even if we're looking in the mirror, we still cannot see these things from the vantage point that they can see, as I was talking about in, I think, work zones, that especially if it's coming from people that know us, really know us, that love us, and that want to see our growth also. Even if it's like a work employee, they want to see you get the promotion. So they start telling you, hey, look, you need to start doing this, or you should stop doing that, or work on this and improve in that. And this is their version of communicating with you. And sometimes you don't get the soft, um, edited, delicate communication from a coworker. Sometimes you're just going to get the blunt outright because there's no time to be sensitive. There's no time to have to think about how to say this to you so you can feel better about what was said. Sometimes you just have to learn when and how to take that hard truth. Now, in your romantic relationships, yes, sometimes you should learn how to take a hard truth there also, but that is probably one of the places where the most effort should be made in trying to communicate in a way that is overall accepted and beneficial for the sender and the receiver. But also understand, like, every situation cannot always be um, it cannot always be perfectly created and designed for your liking and for your benefit. You know, some people, because you have some of those people that's like, they just say it the way they thought it, and they weren't trying to hurt your feelings. They weren't trying to offend you. They just, in that moment, how it came to them came out of their mouth. They didn't even consider trying to figure out how to reword it to make it sound the way that you would want to hear it to receive it. It just came and it went, right? And sometimes you have to really consider who it came from to allow yourself not to let offense be the first thing. Because again, at the end of the day, if you know this, if you really listen to the information that's being conveyed, you can tell if a person is genuinely trying to if a person is genuinely trying to edify you and build you up and point out things where you could really improve. You know that you can tell by what you hear. You can tell if somebody just taking shots and poking at you, and they just trying to mess with you, and they trying to ruffle your feathers and rattle you up. You can tell by what's said, and more importantly, you can really tell by who's saying it, right? And this goes back to checking the temperature of the room, right? Because sometimes all communication isn't necessary, and it definitely isn't always warranted. So again, this goes back to, this is where discernment comes in too. And for those super Christians, don't be so overly discerning that you feel like you always know when a person is just trying to, they just trying to talk about you, or they just want to use this moment to try to beat you down, or talk bad about you. You know who those people are, and you can stay away from those people. But I'm speaking more so on about the people that you are in relationship with, or that you actually have to be in relationship with, and the people that you want to be in relationship with. When it comes down to communicating with those people, the romantic relationship, the person that you want to be with in your romantic relationship, the business colleagues that you have to be in relationship with, um, for the sake of where you work, and the parent-child relationship. These your kids we talking about. This your mama we talking about. This your dad we're talking about. These are relatives we're talking about. And I get it. Everybody don't like everybody in their family, but they're your family. They're going to be like, you can't change your family, right? So in that respect, those people in those relationships, those are the ones where it's more beneficial to learn how to just receive from them. Also, the person that if you are the parent talking to the child, if you are the boyfriend talking to the girlfriend, if you are the boss talking to your employee, we have to learn how to communicate more effectively, because the better we are at communication, the more received the information will be, and the better the result will become after that communication, right? Even when there has been a breakdown in the relationship, when there has been an argument, when there has been a fight, usually the argument or the fight has come out of incorrect communication, right? So what we have to now learn how to do is what I said in feelings. We have to take a pause. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's revisit this. Let's take a moment to feel the feelings that were generated from the argument, right? Let's process, and then let's come back and let's finish having the conversation. Because if this conversation is an important conversation that is wanted or needed to be had, requested by one, avoided by the other, if it's something that has been lingering, if it's something that both of you know needs to change, or something, a conversation that you both know needs to be had, right? Like, let's be brave and let's be confrontable by this person that we have chosen to be in relationship with. Why would you agree to be in a relationship with a person and not do one of the most important things that requires for the success of a relationship, and that's communicate? One would say, well, what was the point of getting that relationship then? Right? It almost makes you sound selfish now. You just wanted to get in that relationship just to receive the benefits from the relationship, to receive the perks from the relationship. You don't want any of the correction. You don't like the bad. You want the good only. You jumped in that relationship because you thought all you were going to get out of that relationship was good. No, right? Let's come back to reality. The reality of it is we're human beings. We're not perfect, and we're all on this road trying to become the best version of ourselves. And in that trying to become the best version of ourselves, there is a requirement for communication, right? And sometimes the communication is needed to be had. Sometimes I need to communicate with you to help me be able to be a better me for you. And if I can't talk to you about what is bothering me when it comes to you, then how will I ever know and be able to make the changes that I want to make for you, unless you allow yourself to communicate with me? And again, in allowing yourself to communicate with me, you have to be open and non-offensive by the things that I have to say, because everything that is usually brought up in a conversation, or everything that's brought up when a person is trying to communicate, are the things of importance. So it's like, stop walking around with the chip on your shoulder, or stop walking around with your on edge, with your trigger sitting on your shoulder, waiting to, like, if they say certain things, you waiting to hear certain things so you can then allow yourself to be triggered and derail the conversation. People actually do that. You're not listening to hear and understand. You're listening, waiting on those trigger words so you can be offended and stop this conversation that you probably did not want to have in the first place. And that's not how things should be. So I'm saying communication. Let's be mindful in our communication. Let's be effective in our communication. Again, communication. Imparting. Let's be more mindful and more effective when we are trying to impart thoughts, opinions, and just outright information to whomever we are trying to communicate with, through speech, through writings, and through signs, so that the success of the relationship that you have with the person that you are trying to communicate with can be actually effective. We got to learn how to communicate. Shameless plug. One of the things that helped me with my communication, and the Lord is still working on me. You know, we all say that nobody's perfect. There is a book. It's probably behind me right here. It's called It's called Nonviolent Communication, and it's more, I believe, with more of a romantic relationship type of book. But it actually teaches you how to listen for the feelings in a person's words. Right? Because we all know that sometimes women don't say what they mean, they say what they feel, right? And it's like, but they don't say directly what they feel. They will say what they're thinking, but what they thought is created a feeling. So it's like, I'm telling you what well, not, she's telling you what she's thinking, but you have to hear how that made her feel. And so when you communicate back to a woman who is speaking to you from feelings, you have to respond to her feelings and not to what she said. So anyway, but that's a whole nother thing. Again, nonviolent communication, that's a book that they'll go deeper into that. I ain't gonna go off into that. I'm gonna end right there. So just thank you for tuning in. And I hope this blesses you as hopefully the other information has. And we'll see you again on the next episode. I love you. Be blessed.